Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Sideline Eye podcast. We have another Dream Team podcast lined up today, and joining us is Barry Shannon, who has had playing careers currently with Forkhill, used to play for Dromintee, Armagh, and also Jordanstown. So, Barry, thanks very much for joining us.
No problem, Sean.
Barry, I suppose just to start, as I said, you're playing with Forkhill and you're part of the championship winning team last year. That was your 7th championship final.
Yeah, 7th final. Got lucky in the last one, I suppose. First 5, obviously, beating them with Dromintee, with Crossmaglen in each one. I suppose we were very unlucky in some of them finals. Obviously, then the break game, then probably lucky that we get the win in the end. Went to a replay and then just snuck it out in the end. So they're probably a wee bit of experience for Forkhill. Probably maybe going up to senior, maybe help them in that regard last year.
And that sort of rivalry with Crossmaglen, I think he's had lost 4 championship finals in 5 years to them. And obviously that Crossmaglen team, we'll get on to talking about them when we get into your dream team. Like that's some of the best players in the country, never mind in Armagh.
Yeah, listen, Crossmaglen were the team at the time. They're probably one of the best teams ever. It's just unfortunate we came along the same time as them. We had a really, really, really strong team. And some of them games could have went either way, particularly, maybe not the first one, but definitely 02, 03, 05, 2010 could have went either way. We always seemed that wee bit extra, maybe bring on a sub or two, which made a difference in the last couple of minutes, when the game opened up a wee bit, that made that difference and it got them over the line.
And that rivalry, Barry, you were obviously in the Armagh panel in round that time, the end of the noughties. What was that rivalry like with the Kiernans and Francie Bellew, Paul Hardy, like such a strong club rivalry? Did it ever carry into the county team, or did it just leave it all at the door?
No, when you went to Armagh, it was a different story all the year. Them boys were, they were superb footballers in their own right. You can't take it away from them. You're getting jealous or anything like that there. You're probably looking on from a distance. You would say, "Geez, we'd love to be winning some of them medals or whatever." But we could never get over the line. They were always just that slight bit better than us, as hard as it was to take at the time, But probably looking back on it now, obviously what all would have been true with Forkhill. We had a very good team at that time at Dromintee, and we just couldn't get there,
So, boy, we'll take a look at your dream team then. To start us off, we'll look at your goalkeeper, and we sort of touched on him there. At club and county level, obviously a legend. Throughout the country, it's Paul Hardy.
Yeah, well, Paul, I think his medal haul alone, he probably has to get in there. I think somebody with near 20 county championships or whatever he has, and the amount of All-Irelands. Hardy speaks for himself, really. He had a monster kick out, composed with the ball in his hands, kept the full back line on his toes, and he rightfully gets in there at number 1. I had a couple other ones there. Paddy Mckeema, my own teammate, Dromintee, obviously went on to play for Armagh at a high level. Excellent keeper as well. John Devane, who I played with in Jordanstown, another great keeper. Obviously won All-Irelands with Tyrone. But I think, as I said before, the medal haul Hardy has gets him in there as number 1 for me.
He's definitely hard to argue with, Hardy. So we'll look at your full back line then with 3 more of your Armagh teammates, Devane, Francie Bellew, and then McNulty. And McNulty you also played with in Jordanstown.
Yeah, Enda won a Sigerson with Queens, and then he came over the following year to Jordanstown, and he won the Sigerson with Jordanstown as well. Obviously went for an all-Armagh full back line here again. Andy Mallon was just a freak of nature in terms of his ability to train, and then his physical attributes. There wasn't much to Andy, but in the gym, nobody would out-chin him, nobody would out-bench him, and then on the field he was so quick. Endurance ways he could run all day, and then that was a nightmare for corner forwards. Like I always remember our first game for Armagh. I think it was Andy's debut as well when the McKenna Cup against Down. He was marking James McCartan, who's probably coming to the end of his career, and that would be a worst nightmare. You come to near the end of your career and marking Andy Mallon as a 19 or 20-year-old. He was a machine, Francie then, he was a cult figure, I suppose, with all Armagh fans. Just a gentle giant, really. You wouldn't hear a word out of Francie, but then when he went on the field, he was a totally different animal. Just, you know, a huge presence. And then, you know, obviously, you know, as brave as a lion, just a solid fullback all round. And then Enda, obviously, learned a lot from Enda over the years. Just his preparation, his focus, you know, we put everything into his football. I suppose what he lacked in talent, he made up for in effort. And then he was also your go-to man when you were looking to close out any of the top forwards of the game. You know, I suppose any time you were playing Tyrone or anything, and it was always the man, Mark Canavan, obviously limited his effect in the game. And then obviously, you know, the other thing, Mark and the Gooch, you know, closing him out is no mean feat, you know, so Wendy gets in there as well for me.
I suppose just when you were starting out with Armagh, Barry, Francie would have probably been the fullback at that stage. Like, how safe did you feel for a man just breaking in to make his debut with Francie Bellew beside him?
Yeah, it was always nice to have somebody like that with that experience and that strength and knowledge. You know, he safe pair of hands. You know, Francie wouldn't have said much, but whatever he said, you listened to. You know, it was obviously going to be important. You know, he made a wee tip here or there, what to do or what not to do, you know, from his own experience, you know. But yeah, Francie's a gentleman, you know, but on the field then, obviously, there was only one Francie.
And we'll see your half-back line then, Barry. So we've Aidan O'Rourke, Kieran McGeeney and Philip Jordan here. And I suppose Aidan O'Rourke, you must have been sick of looking at Aidan O'Rourke at a time with Armagh, Dromintee and Jordanstown.
Yeah, Aidan was an exceptional footballer as well, you know. Both, first of all, as a defender, able to mark somebody and close them out of the game, but then also he had attacking attributes where he pushed forward and he kicked a score. You know, he was another man for hitting penalties, another great man for scoring goals from penalties. Always went right side. Nobody could ever figure that one out. But his composure of the ball was brilliant. His ability to pass the ball into the forward line, probably best remembered for, you know, the pass in the Stevie for the winning point for the All-Ireland that year. Probably people, what stands out most for me about Aidan, he was dropped to the panel in 06, 07, I think, in around that time. So, you know, anybody else, that probably would have been the end of their career. He came back in 08. Peter McDonald took him back in 08, and he was probably one of the main reasons why Armagh won the Ulster that year. He was super in the half-back. I'm playing six then because Kieran had obviously retired at that stage then. I suppose Geezer then, you know, there's not much more I can say about him. I only got to play with him for a half, but his just to see him in action, his preparation, his focus, and then, you know, he left no stone unturned to be the best that he could be, and obviously he's a great leader. And then 7, I changed it up a wee bit. I went for somebody different. I could have put in Kieran McKeever's, you know, unbelievable player, Aaron Kiernan, Kevin Dess, Finn Moe, all these players, but I went with Philly Jordan. I played with Philly for a year at Georgetown. And again, he came over to Georgetown from Queens. In 01, he won the Siggers from Queens, and then he came over. We must be doing a Masters or something at Georgetown. But you could see straight away there, he was playing left half back, he was cornerback behind him, you know, aggressive, could attack, could defend, good under break ball. I suppose in Armagh circle, he's probably best remembered for getting Jamer sent off in 03, but we'll not hold that against him. Didn't take away from the fact he was a super footballer, Sean.
Yeah, and I'm not sure Armagh fans will agree with him getting in, Barry, but definitely his medal haul and that speaks for itself. Like he definitely was one of the best wing halfbacks of his generation.
Yeah, I suppose anybody that wins 3 All-Irelands and maybe because you have 3 or 4 All-Stars, you know, so that shows you anybody getting to that level in the game, it shows how good a player they were.
We'll move on to your midfield then, Barry. With Paul McGrain and Fergal Doherty, I don't think you'd want to be caught in between these two.
No, these two very similar animals, I would put it in that regard. You know, two colossus of men in the middle of the field. Great hands, aggressive. You daren't be an attacking grid with these two. Like, you know, they were the top of the tree. I suppose with Paul, you know, I would have looked after a lot of the 92 boys, the minor boys that were beating out Ireland final that year. You had Jamer, Paul, you know, Barry O'Hagan, Eddie Martin, my own clubmate, who deserves a mention for the full back line there as well. So, you know, I always looked up at people like Paul and that. It was great to actually then get on down the line and actually play with them, you know. And then Doc in the middle of the field, you know, I've never seen somebody who was able to block as many balls as an outfield player as Forkhill. You know, unbelievable pair of hands and just a great all-round footballer.
And what was their leadership qualities like for you? Because obviously Geezer was a big leader in the Armagh team, but beside him it was always Geezer and Paul McGreen. And I suppose for Derry, Fergal Doherty was the same.
Yeah, anytime, you know, Paul spoke, everybody listened. You know, that's from my own experience with Armagh. Just everybody had huge respect for him. Both as a person, first and foremost, and then as a footballer, everybody kind of looked up to Paul, you know. He was another real leader within the pack. And then Fergal, obviously, you know, played with him at Georgetown for a year. We won a Rain Cup. Unfortunately, beating the Sigerson semi-final, but Fergal had them qualities as well, Sean.
We'll see your half-forward line then. You have three legends again here. You have Oisín McConville, Cathal O'Rourke and Sean Chavner.
Yeah, well, you know, once I started going into the forward line here to pick players, I was leaving out boys that, you know, would get in any other team, you know. But I suppose these three, you know, have got to the very top of the three, I suppose, in terms of GAA circles. You know, Oisín, having played with him and having played against him many, many times, you know, he was the man that to get that crucial score when you really, really needed it. Either to get you back into the game or get you out of a hole towards the end of the game. You know, he was that real clutch player. Cathal then, obviously, he was the mainstay for Armagh for a lot of the way through the 90s, you know. Probably coming towards the end of his Armagh career then, obviously he was in the Panlo too. But he was probably best remembered for his performances in Croke Park, maybe in 2000, the semi-final. They went to a replay against Kerry, where Armagh were very unlucky that time not to get over the line. You know, so Cathal, brilliant left foot, very accurate, aggressive, strong, could mix it either way, but he could play most and foremost. I suppose then the man on the right then, Sean Chavner, you know, again, Sean, an elite player, obviously to win as much as he has, at the level he has, you know, just shows you brilliant pair of hands, could get forward, could defend, had that shimmy that sold everybody for about 15 years. Yeah, Sean, you could see from day one that Sean was going to get that. He had that drive and determination to get to the top as well. I always remember Sigerson, we played in Cork. Back then, the Sigerson was a 3-game weekend. We actually beat in the semi-finals. The first game against St Mary's went to extra time. The second game we got beat at the end of the game by UCD. Got a goal near the end of the game. But Armagh played Tyrone in the first National League game on the Sunday after that. And all the county teams at that stage give their players the weekend off. And obviously, anybody's played in the Sigerson weekend, once you're beat or you go on and win it, it's obviously a big weekend for other aspects. But I always remember Sean leaving on the Saturday to go and play in the game on the Sunday for Armagh. And that was in 03. That was in the National League in 03. And that stood me then. Obviously, Tyrone went on, won the All-Ireland that year. So we small things like that made a big difference. And, you know, that drive and determination, you can see that even back then, you know. We played 3 games in one weekend too, you know. People talk about burnout and all that stuff now, you know, that was unheard of back then.
I suppose by the likes of Oisín McConville there, like, was he the best club player you ever seen in Armagh? Like, obviously when Dromintee and Cross was competing for titles, he'd have been at his near his end. I suppose he'd been playing in 2010, but he'd have been retired by Armagh at that stage.
Yeah, I probably marked Oisín in most of them finals, you know. And the one thing about Oisín was you could never feel comfortable around Oisín. You might think that you've been closed out of the game, but as soon as you thought that, he would turn and kick a point over from 50 yards. And that could be the one game that would get the crowd raised, that would kick Cross on to get them over the line. You know, or he might kick a sideline ball, kick it over the bar, or he might kick, you know, a penalty. You know, he was just that player at the end of the game, and Cross knew that, you know, if they get the ball to Oisín in them crucial periods, like most of them games, bar the first game against Cross in 2001, all the rest of the games were the exact same. They all came down to the last 5 minutes. And generally, Oisín was the one that was the difference there in them last 5 minutes. Obviously, I mentioned previously that they're always they could always bring on substitutes as well that made that slightly difference to have the whole thing. But most of the time, yeah, I was on the other end. Oisín getting Crossmaglen across the line, unfortunately.
And we'll move on to your full forward line then. Three more great players that at their time were peaking in the country, the best in the country. With Paddy Bradley, who you played with at university, with Ronan Clark, and then with Steve McDonald as well.
Yeah, I as an ex-fullback, I wouldn't like to be picking up any of these players on their own, never mind as a three, you know. I think I've seen some of the players that missed out here. We'll probably chat about them here later. Paddy, he was in the class at Jordanstown. He had a ridiculous left foot. His ability to kick points from any angle with his left foot, from any distance as well. And most of the viewers will have seen it in Croke Park and all around Ulster over the years. Brilliant, brilliant forward. Clarky then, I suppose any man that destroys Seamus Moynihan, one of the best fullbacks ever, as an 18-year-old, deserves to be in any team. I think people maybe forget how good Clarky actually was. Obviously his career then got caught up with him with the injuries and stuff. But even in the last Ulster Armagh on 08, he got an all-star that year. He was ridiculous. And then Stevie, obviously, would have marked Stevie a lot of the time, both at club level and then up through the ranks then with Armagh and playing with him. Then obviously he needs no introduction. You give Stevie half a yard, it was over the bar, it was in the net. His ability to, I've never seen anybody else like him in terms of his ability to kick a point over his shoulder without looking at the goal was ridiculous. And he kicked some of the best points I've ever seen in Croke Park. Yeah, so that's my full forward line. I wouldn't like to be marking that full forward line there.
I suppose, like with Paddy Bradley, I think he's the top scorer ever in the Ulster Championship, but the fact that he never won an Ulster medal or never I'm not sure if he ever contested a final. Does that maybe go against him? And is he not underrated, but maybe not appreciated as much as the other great forwards of that time?
Possibly so. It's like a lot of players that you don't really see as much when they're not getting the medals at the end of the day, But I remember Paddy's debut for, I think it was a National League final against, I'm not sure who it was, but I remember him hitting a pass where Anthony Tobin scored a goal in Clones. It was an unbelievable pass. And he was just at that in his locker. He could do them things, I remember him in a Sigerson destroying Anthony Lynch, who was a top quality cornerback for Cork at that stage, just, making him look like an average club player. And then the things them boys do in training, like people only see on the TV, what, the stuff they'd be able to do in training, be able to do, you talk about Premiership players and you often hear them telling stories of the stuff they do in training. With them three were in that same regard, like they could kick scores from any angle. And if they were on form, they were unmarkable.
We'll see your subs bench here now, Barry, and I know you'd spoke about a few of them that were unlucky not to get into your team, but with John Devane, Kieran McKeever, Oran Kiernan, Enda McGinley, Mark Lynch, Martin O'Rourke, Paddy Mckeema, Kevin Dass, and Jamie Clark. So I suppose who was the closest to getting into your team?
Obviously, Kieran's really unlucky there to miss out. I was lucky enough to play with Geezer for a short period of time. Aaron as well in his own right, his medal haul alone. Enda McGinley then top class player. Obviously Enda won 3 All-Irelands with Tyrone, senior All-Irelands, he's many more underage. Mark Lynch then, I played my final year, unbelievable footballer. Probably Jamie's unlucky there. Jamie was only coming into the panel as he was coming out of the panel, but I used to mark him every night and he used to absolutely give me headaches. He was just a complete nightmare to mark. Paddy Mckeema deserves a mention there. People often forget about Paddy. Paddy made his debut for Armagh when he was 18. That's no mean feat. Like, he was still in school and that was an Armagh team actually coming, they were starting to come in Ulster and that. Paddy was so strong, a brilliant left foot, and a lot of a great work rate as well out of Paddy. And then the 2 clubmates, I put them in there as well. Marty, great man on the breaking ball. He threw a lot of work as well. He was just pure dog in around the middle of the field there. But you needed them kind of players. And then Kevin Dass, another man probably unlucky with injury there throughout his career. I suppose anybody that gets scouted to go to Australia when they're 18, just showed the qualities that he had. probably came back after his serious injury from Australia, and he probably didn't have the pace he had before he went. And, you know, even though he represented Armagh, with the number 11 jersey on him there, he probably wasn't the same player. He didn't have that explosive pace that he used to have. But anybody there could replace anybody on that team, Sean, you know. And I've also left out some cracking players as well that I play with. You know, Finn Moe deserves a mention there. Brian Mallon, all them players, great players in their own right. Yeah, but that's the 24 I came to in the end.
And Kevin Dias, Barry, like, we talked about you, Dromintee being in the finals, and then how exciting was it for somebody like Kevin Dias to be breaking through the underage in Dromintee, or when did you know that he was going to be so good?
Yeah, well, I would have taught Kevin in the Abbey coming through teaching practice and stuff, and you would have seen that he had that extra bit of pace that not too many had, you know. Obviously, then he went on to show that he won a Hogan Cup, scoring 2 unbelievable goals for the Abbey, getting them across the line. Their one and only Hogan Cup success. Then he won Ulster Minor with Armagh that year. But I particularly remember him, maybe Clonagale supporters won't remember him too fondly for this. Clonagale had us beat in the semi-final of the championship one year. Kevin was only 17 or 18, and he put one in the top corner to get us a draw. And then in the replay, Clans had us beat again, and he put another one in the top corner to get us over the line that time, you know. And it was at that stage you could see that Kevin had that wee bit extra that a lot of players didn't have, you know. So it was nice to see him coming through. Obviously, he went away to Australia, and then he had his injury problems when he came back, you know. But it was nice to see him getting to the top level with Armagh as well.
And the likes of Ananda McGinley there, Barry, like, he's obviously went into management now. He's over Antrim for the coming year. Would you have seen them qualities in him when you were playing with him, that he was going to go on and reach management level?
Yeah, and it was always a very level-headed, intelligent guy. Obviously, I played the whole way through. He won Freshers, Rain Cups, Sigerson, all with him in Georgetown. At that stage, Andy was more of a full forward. Underage, he was the target man inside. But towards the end of his career, then obviously he was best remembered then no wait for going out the middle of the field and then doing a job out there. Yeah, but you could see that he had them attributes to go on and manage. It's obviously nice to see people then that you've played with or have went on. You know, I suppose that's the start of it. Now they're getting to that stage in their career where they're getting into management, and I suppose that'll be a good stepping stone. I suppose with Antrim, then you know, getting them promoted will be seen as a success, or maybe getting a win or two in the Ulster Championship. You know, so it's a good starting point for Enda there. You know.
We'll see your final team then, Barry. Looking through it, it's a team spread with quality and All Ireland medals. And I suppose there's so many leaders in that team. You've the likes of Geezer, McGrean, Doherty, Chavner. Like, there's so many players there that were the best players of their generation. And I suppose to finish up, we finish every podcast with 2 quick fire questions. So, firstly, who's the hardest trainer you played with? Like, you were played in so many great teams, but who's the real driver in that you noticed in training?
I probably have him a team there. I'd say Andy Mallon was a standout in terms of his ability to train. He never missed training. And then, you know, he's just a freak of nature. Andy, in terms of his physique, you would think for somebody with so light a physique, wouldn't be able to bench the amount he's able to bench in the gym or squat. You know, he was just frightening then. And then when he went out on the field, his speed, if it was a straight line ball put in front of the corner forward, he had absolutely no chance. Andy was winning that ball out in front. And then he combine that with the endurance that he had. You know, he was just a ridiculous all-round athlete. So he was Sean.
And I suppose, what about Geezer? How was he to train with? Like, there's stories, obviously, of how committed and dedicated and that he was. What was he like to train with? You'd have trained with him for a couple of years under Armagh, would you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to train with Geezer. I was in and around the panels, I suppose, towards the end of 02, 03, 04 in that stage as well. So, yeah, you know, you just maybe stood back and all a lot of the time, you know. The way Geezer trained was the way he played, you know, and I suppose that could be said for any of them players in that team. You know, he just set the level of the bar so high that everybody else had to get to that level. And not everybody got to the level that Geezer got to, but he would always push the boundaries that everybody, you know, try and get to the best that they could be. And then when he talked, then, you know, put your motivation level right up there as well. It was just great to see his preparation, even the change rooms before games and stuff, to see his focus and his, getting tuned in the games and stuff. There will be small things that you can only learn from, from people like that.
And finally, boy, we spoke about your impressive forward line and the quality full forward line. We spent a bit of time on them. So who's the toughest opponent you faced? You were obviously in the defence. Who would have been the hardest to mark in training?
Well, probably the one that had the most impact would probably be Oisin. There'd be no doubt about that. The fact that he beat us in so many county finals, semi-finals, first round replays, all them, and that was the difference between, Dromintee maybe winning, going on further and things, but he was just at that level. He was that ultimate clutch player at the end of games where you could just do something ridiculous and you'd just be shaking your head at the end of it. You just had to hold your hands up and just had full respect for that, So I'd say Oisin, Sean, yeah, he was just a class player.
And what was your approach, boy? Like, how do you prepare to go into mark somebody like Oisin McConville?
You just, you have to just focus. Every game's different, I suppose, and you're just hoping that he maybe has an off day, or you just try to do things that put him off slightly that you didn't do the previous year. But he had that knack of just, even when you had them closed out of the game. I remember a semi-final one year where he kicked the sideline ball to get them a point up in Carrickcruppen. He just do things like that there. It could be a free kick, or or he might win a ball and slip it to somebody that would, bag it and put it in the back of the net. He just had that X factor that most people didn't have.
That's great, Barry. Thanks very much for coming on to join us and talk us through your dream team. And hopefully we'll have a few more weeks of the Dream Team podcast coming up, and then we'll be back into the action sooner rather than later. So once again, thanks very much, Barry.
No problem, Sean. Thank you.